Good morning. Yesterday at the U.S. Capitol, the entire Republican delegation pretty much demonstrated that they are entirely unsuited for office. I know that for the most part, folks have been focused on how Donald Trump, the 34-time convicted felon and adjudicated sexual assaulter, and someone who owes more than $500 million between that case and fraud judgments, is unfit for office and makes a mockery of the democratic process. But it's really important to know this. He is not alone. Donald Trump is like a mafiosa boss. Don the Con has his MAGA Mafia. They know enough, and they have done nothing to stop his return to the Capitol. In fact, yesterday, they invited him back with open arms and loud applause.
Okay.
The only good thing I can say about Donald Trump coming back to have a private meeting with House Republicans was this. The name that House member Adam Schiff gave to the debacle, he called it Bring a Felon to Work Day. And that wasn't just a quip that he made on Twitter. He actually delivered such an important speech in the House, and I want to play that for you now.
I want to begin by quoting the jury in the Manhattan hush money payment trial. Guilty, 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 guilty. This was what the jury pronounced unanimously on every count.
So I could listen to Adam Schiff say guilty, 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 guilty 34 times or 334 times. But no matter how many times he says that, will not change the fact that there is no shame, there is no dignity, and there is no respect for the rule of law from the House Republicans. When they invited him back to the Capitol, that was the first time he had been back to that place since January 6, 2021. We're talking around 3.5 years since he helped instigate the insurrection, the violent attack by his mob on the U.S. Capitol, where they were seeking to kill both Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence, shouting chants like, "Hang Mike Pence," where they smashed windows and defecated in the hallways. It goes on and on and on. And yet there he was, welcomed by them. Leaders like this, like organized crime leaders, act with the support of their underlings. And the House Republicans are the MAGA Mafia. These people are fanatics. They are fakers. They are F your feeling fascists. And they are celebrating and nominating a convicted felon. Okay, that's where we are. And in addition to that, they are trashing and lying about the progress that Joe Biden and the Democrats have made. When the Democrats deliver, the Republicans take the credit. And I'm going to give you a specific example here so you can see that it's not just Donald Trump, it's also the entire MAGA mafioso, the entire congressional delegation. All of the congressional Republicans period. So here's an example. As you know, one of the highest achievements of the Biden administration was passing this massive infrastructure bill. And here's the key example of when the Democrats delivered and Joe Biden achieved an incredible result, and the Republicans take the credit after the fact. And that is with the bipartisan infrastructure bill that Joe Biden managed to get through. Only about a dozen Republicans supported the legislation, but it passed. And it resulted in more than $1 trillion of funds to flow into towns and cities all across the country. We're talking about roads and bridges and other infrastructure projects. And at the time, those 13 Republicans who supported the legislation were shamed, were blamed, and the Republicans who did not support it complained that it was just too expensive and that it was a waste of taxpayers' money and how terrible Joe Biden was for getting this legislation through. Okay, now fast forward to 3 years later, and the projects are beginning to materialize, and states and cities are starting to benefit from this. So, what do you think they're doing? The Republicans who vociferously objected to this legislation are now taking credit for it in their districts. So, to get a sense of this, take a look at this chart in Politico. It shows you state by state by state where this money has flown in districts where the Republican member of the House is vulnerable in terms of their re-election. So look at this top one, more than $270 billion in this district in Iowa. And the representative, Mary Ann Miller Meeks, who did not vote for the legislation, is acting like it was her idea. I mean, she's doing things like attending ribbon cutting ceremonies and giving speeches, thanking the Army Corps of Engineers. It's astonishing. Well, the good news here, though, is that Joe Biden has historically spoken out against this. He is mocking them.
I want to thank my Republican friends who voted for the law and my Republican friends who voted against it as well. But I still get asked to fund the projects in those districts as well. But don't worry. I promised I'd be a president for all Americans. We'll fund these projects. And I'll see you at the groundbreaking.
And that we need to see more of. So we have some news out of the U.S. Supreme Court from yesterday. I hesitate to call it good news because it's more like neutral news. This is the unanimous decision by the justices that the plaintiffs in the case trying to challenge the Food and Drug Administration's approval of mifepristone, one of the abortion drugs, did not have standing to bring the case. When the court says the plaintiffs don't have standing, that means the court does not even address the merits of the argument. This means that there was no discussion about the FDA's authority to approve this drug. There's no discussion about whether there should be deference to this agency and the many studies that were done showing both the efficacy and safety of the medication. None of that was discussed. This was simply a decision to say that these doctors and dentists who formed this group, especially to challenge this decision by the FDA, could not bring the case. They were the wrong people. So as Dahlia Lithwick and Mark Joseph Stern said in a really great article in Slate, this is more of a reprieve than it is a victory. We will see other cases challenging these abortion medications in the future. And I was pleased to see the White House issue statements about this and also the vice president. I want to read to you what Kamala Harris said At the beginning of a press conference on an unrelated topic today, she began the discussion referring to this decision. And here's what she said. This is not a cause for celebration, because the reality is certain things are still not going to change. She added that we are looking at the fact that 2/3 of women of reproductive age in America still live in states with a Trump abortion ban. This ruling is not going to change that. This ruling is not going to change the fact that Trump's allies have a plan that, if all else fails, to eliminate medication abortion through executive action. Let's go to Crazy Town. Today, Crazy Town is somewhere in the tangled up gray and white matter that makes up what more or less functions as Donald Trump's brain. I'm going to need to read this to you because I do not want to commit it to memory, because I don't want my brain to turn into Crazy Town either. So let me set this up for you. When he was meeting with the Republican delegation yesterday, the following was reported out that by Jake Sherman, and he said this was almost verbatim something that Donald Trump said about Christina Pelosi, one of Nancy Pelosi's daughters, who is a very prominent member of the Democratic Party in California. Here's what he said. Nancy Pelosi's daughter is a wacko. Her daughter told me if things were different, Nancy and I would be perfect together. There's an age difference, though. Okay, what? What? On what planet does he think that could have ever happened? Obviously, Christine Pelosi said that never happened, that she never said that. So why is he making this up? Does he have no filter in his brain? Is he saying that he is attracted to Nancy Pelosi? What in the world is wrong with this man? Maybe I should say, what is right with him? Okay, have a great weekend, and I will be back on Monday.